50 million in cash. The front door closed behind him at the usual time. A suburban house, quiet street, lights in neighboring windows switching off one by one. Nothing about the exterior suggested anything connected to what lay beyond the next morning. Inside, a man set down his keys, moved through familiar rooms, the pattern of his evening unchanged. The phone rang. Not late enough to be alarming, not early enough to be routine. A call that fits somewhere in between, in a space where attention sharpened without reason. He answered. The voice on the other end did not raise itself. It did not need to. Instructions were given with the kind of clarity that leaves no room for interpretation. His family had already been reached. The sequence had already begun. The house did not change, but everything inside it did. The Securitas depot sat miles away, secured by layers designed to hold against intrusion. Fences, cameras, controlled entry points. Cash moved through it in volumes that required system rather than spectacle. Trucks arrived. Loads were processed. Everything recorded. The man who had answered the phone was part of that system. He knew the procedures, the codes, the expectations that governed entry and movement within the depot. Knowledge that under normal conditions ensured security. Under these conditions, it became something else. The first problem had been access. The depot could not be entered by force without immediate response. Alarms, police, the kind of attention that ends a plan before it begins. Entry required legitimacy, or something close enough to pass as it. The solution was coercion. The manager, his authority, his ability to open doors that would remain closed to anyone else. By controlling him, the crew could inherit that authority without needing to replicate it. What was said during the initial contact has not been fully documented in exact terms, but the structure of the plan reveals the intention. Pressure applied not through threat alone, but through proximity to what mattered most. The flaw in this solution was dependency. The plan required the manager to act under pressure, to follow instructions precisely while under conditions that could disrupt judgment. Any deviation, any hesitation could fracture the sequence. The commitment came when the family was taken and the manager was instructed to proceed as if nothing had changed. The second problem was control inside the depot. Even with access, the building contained personnel, systems, processes that would need to be overridden quickly. The presence of one authorized individual would not be enough to control the environment. The solution was layered entry. The manager would arrive, gain access. Once inside, the crew would follow, using the open path to enter without triggering the external defenses. Control would then be established from within. The flaw remained. Internal systems are designed to respond to irregularities, timing, movement, patterns that deviate from the expected flow. The longer the operation took, the more likely something would register. The commitment was fixed when the timing aligned. The manager would arrive at the depot under instruction. The crew would be waiting, and then it happened. The gates opened. Beat 1. Arrival. The vehicle approached the depot as it had on countless other mornings. The barrier recognized it. The process initiated. No alarms, no resistance. The manager moved through the sequence required to enter. Identification, codes, actions performed in the correct order. The action appeared routine. The complication was invisible. What the system recognized as normal carried within it a deviation that had not yet been detected. The presence of others, waiting, ready to follow. The decision under pressure was to maintain the appearance of routine until the moment it could no longer be sustained. Status check. The outer layer was passed. Beat 2. Entry of the crew. The path opened by the manager became the path used by the others. Movement that followed closely enough to avoid detection, but not so close as to disrupt the sequence. Inside, the shift was immediate. Control asserted. Staff confronted. Movement redirected. The depot's internal rhythm interrupted. The action was fast. The complication was scale. The building was larger than a single room. More people, more points where something could go wrong. Each second carried the possibility of an unaccounted variable. The decision was to consolidate control quickly, gather those present, remove them from positions where they could act independently. Status check. The depot was under control. Beat 3. The vault. Cash stored in containers, organized for movement, not displayed, not exposed, but present in quantities that justified the systems around them. The crew moved toward it. The action shifted from control to extraction. Containers opened, contents assessed. The volume exceeded expectation. More than could be handled casually. Each unit of cash adding weight not only physically, but in time required to move it. The complication was magnitude. The plan had accounted for significant amounts, but the reality extended beyond initial assumptions. Taking more increased reward, it also extended the operation. The decision was to continue loading beyond the original threshold, to take advantage of the opportunity presented despite the increased risk. Status check. The cash was being moved. The vehicles were filling. Beat 4. Departure. The loading completed to the extent allowed by time and capacity. The crew prepared to exit, retracing the path through which they had entered. The action required the same precision as arrival. No sudden movements. No actions that would trigger delayed responses in the system. The goal was to leave the depot in a state that would not immediately reveal what had occurred. The complication was the aftermath. The manager, the staff, the building itself. Each element would begin to return to its normal function once the immediate pressure was removed. The decision was to exit before that transition began. Status check. The vehicles left with the cash. It was done. But the plan could not hold. The flaw activated in the human element. The manager had been central to the operation. His knowledge, his actions, his presence at each stage. Once the immediate threat was removed, his position shifted, from participant under pressure to source of information. The realization formed quickly. The operation had relied on his cooperation. It could not prevent his later involvement in the investigation. The response of the crew was to disperse, to divide the money, to reduce the visibility of the operation by fragmenting its results. The irreversible point had been the decision to involve someone who could later describe what had happened. When the investigators arrived, the scene held both control and disruption. The first evidence reveal came from the process of entry. No forced breach. No damaged barriers. The implication was internal access. Someone with authority had enabled the operation. The investigative response focused on those with that authority. Roles examined, movements reconstructed. The second evidence reveal came from the distribution. Large amounts of cash moved quickly create traces, purchases, transfers, behaviors that deviate from normal patterns. These traces began to surface in the days and weeks that followed. The implication connected individuals beyond the initial entry. A network formed around the movement of the money. The response expanded. Arrests made, connections mapped. The structure of the operation revealed over time. A significant portion of the cash was recovered. Several members of the gang were arrested and convicted, their roles established through evidence gathered during the investigation. Others were identified through their connection to the distribution of the money, though not all were captured immediately. The robbery led to changes in how high-value depots manage internal access and respond to coercion-based threats. The final image is of the depot gates, still standing, still functioning, opening and closing as designed, long after the cash that passed through them that morning was gone. End.